Hey everyone, how's it going? Last time we covered the forming of the team, the Young Avengers, and today we'll continue that theme with forging teams, but not in the world of superheroes. Instead, I once again dive into the world of fantasy, this time with the franchise that I never really got into despite the popularity, the granddaddy of tabletops, Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, despite having several friends who played tabletop RPGs and follow several YouTubers like Cape Joel who have their own RPG campaigns, like Joel Series Capes and Quests or Team 4-Star sessions of D&D. But for me, I never really got into them as a player myself. I don't know why, I just never really had fun playing them. However, that hasn't stopped me from noticing the insane boom D&D has had through the years, especially nowadays in pop culture, with its first big return to the mainstream being an online session of voice actors, with the DM being Captain Levi Ackerman himself, Matt Mercer, known as Critical Role, with their first series of adventures and the comic we will be covering, Vox Machina. Now, while fans of the stream or the animated series that came out earlier this year are probably familiar with the party members, this comic series starts off in publication in 2017 and actually tells a tale of how the players' characters came together, which was covered way back in the early days of the stream when it was more just for fun and more independent, where Matt and his friends just played at home. Let's get into how it all truly started. By the way, I would like to thank two of my friends, Joe and Mal, who are big players of D&D, by helping me out with some of the terms that I didn't fully understand when I first read this. Warning, spoilers. Our series takes place in the magical land Taldore, where we meet two members of our soon-to-be motley crew, the half-elf twins Vax the Rogue and Vex the Ranger. We're hiding in a swamp and unfortunately witness a bunch of locals forcing a poor woman to sacrifice her newborn. So as you can tell, this story is going to be all sunshine and cupcakes. Apparently the swamp is cursed and Vax and Vex are hired to figure out what's causing it. The locals claim it's some kind of god, but Vex ain't buying it and honestly doesn't care what these people think, seeing them as they just sacrificed a child. Things get kind of dicey as they encounter another local, this one being a fish-like creature known as a swagan, riding a giant shark, and though Vax is able to kill it, he's mortally wounded. However, he luckily encounters a fellow half-elf, Keyleth the druid, who is able to heal his wounds. It's a pretty awkward meeting, but Keyleth is able to reveal that whatever is causing this is in the water. It could only affect people who are very sick or very young and living near the swamp, since it also needs prolonged exposure. It's starting to sound more like a standard trip to Florida. Anyway, with that, Vex thinks it's about time that they part ways with the weird wood girl. Elsewhere, we see another party of adventurers, particularly two of their members, a gnome by the name of Scanlan, who is a bard, and a Goliath barbarian by the name of Grog, who decided to cause some trouble for their party by ringing a bell that led a bunch of insane monsters and a giant frog to attack them. The party is pretty annoyed, but they seem to be working out pretty well and claim their prize, but also a strange potion that their mage can't identify. They soon learn it must be something important though, as they are attacked by a group of hooded men as they head to the local town. They defeat them, but their mage is killed in the process. They'd end up in a tavern where they meet up with a dragonborn sorcerer by the name of Tiberius Stormwind, who turns out to actually know Keyleth, as they're both in the same party. More on them in a bit. And since the temple was located in the same swamp, they were investigating, asked questions regarding what they encountered and what they possibly saw. Galen, however, doesn't really have much to say or really care about it, but does bring up the potion, which he then sells to Tiberius for a gem. Unfortunately, right after this, he and his party are met by a man who at first tries to intimidate them by posing as a watchman, wanting the potion, but ends up making a deal to pay them instead when that fails. Gan agrees and tries to convince his party to join in, but only because he can tell that the man is lying and wants to know more about the potion. Grog is the only one up for it, while the others at this point rather leave town and go to the city of Whitestone, because surely Whitestone has to be the less stressful place to be an adventurer. They agree to give them some time to retrieve it before they leave. The two head out, with us finally returning to Keyleth and Tiberius, whose party is going through some, let's say, stressful situations. Turns out that the ones that hired them are the true local law of the town, the dangerous syndicate known as the Clasp, and they are creepy as hell, as one of their members interrogates a demon who seems to be linked to what's happening and not entirely happy with the results the party has given them, in response poisoning one of the party members and telling them that they are now on a tight schedule, since now they must figure out what's going on before the poison kills him. This leads to Keyleth and Tiberius trying to track down the alchemist who could help figure out exactly how this potion, which Tiberius identifies as Aqua Theta, the water death, a very powerful potion, came to be here. They find the alchemists such as Scanlan and Grog, along with Vax and Vex, which of course leads to a bit of a misunderstanding, a fight, but short-lived as more hooded guys show up and the six have to team up to deal with them, ending with them coming face to face with the mastermind, a demon named Izelda. Why is she doing this? Will Keith and Tiberius be able to save their teammate? What horrors will they face? How will their first quest go? And most importantly, how does Trinket the Bear fit into all this? Well, you don't need to roll the dice to know that you need to read to find out. This is both a fun start to the series and a great jumping on point to people who relate to the party. The characters' introduction are brief and to the point, which gives us more time to understand the mythology and the tone. Though pretty sure the opening alone was a bit of a dead giveaway. The world that Matt Mercer created is in this great blend of wondrous and fantastic, but also harsh and terrifying. The only complaint I really have, and this isn't really the fault of Matt Mercer or Matthew Colville, the story's co-writer, and the one who scripted the campaign into comic form, is that their sense of drama is kind of lost as it is a prequel. We know these guys are going to face new threats. Now when it comes to other characters like the former party members of both Scanlan or Keyleth and Tiberius, that can be a little suspenseful, but as you can guess with me not saying their names, they don't really leave an impact for us to really care, or in some cases, not yet. Still, the main plot with the swamp is interesting, the fights are exciting, and it's fun to see how exactly these characters met and got along, which of course leads to us discussing the characters. Starting in order, we have the twins, Vax and Vex. Right from the start, you definitely get this feel with the two as a team. Vax is mellow, friendly, and occasionally goofy, while his sister is more serious, less trusting, and more focused on business. Not to say we don't see the usual character traits associated with these classes, the rogue and the ranger, with Vax being a bit of a scoundrel and a bit shady towards people at first, while Vex is definitely battle-hardened and is very knowledgeable of nature. Vex is probably the only one who really goes through a story arc here, as she has to learn to at least try to trust others. Keyleth especially is difficult for her, given their opposing personality, but I'll get more into that as I discuss Keyleth. Next we have the duo of Scanlan the Bard of great skill, unexpectedly clever, and who, as some of my friends claim, is one of the reasons the Bard class in D&D are now known to be incredibly horny, but that last part doesn't really apply in this story. And Grog, a barbarian who might be slow on the uptake and childish, but is very kind-hearted, and when it's time to rage, expect no survivors. The two are essentially where we get the best source of comedy, as we see them start out causing trouble for their party, to trying to rip off an imposter, to eventually going on a crazy adventure where they have to face off against a demon. A lot of people underestimate the two, but as I mentioned, they are very clever in some of the most surprising ways. I mean, Scanlan was able to quickly figure out that the man claiming to be a watchman was a fake, since if it was a watchman, they'd probably be dead already, since the Clasp run the town. And Grog, though he didn't realize it himself at first, was able to point him and Scanlan to the right direction when it came to what exactly was going on with everyone when they were starting the mission. Also, this really has nothing to do with the comic, but am I the only one that finds it a bit surprising that Travis Willingham, Grog's creator and voice, has only played the Hulk once, and that was only for that Superhero Squad show? I gotta say, after seeing Grog in action and his performance as the character in the show, I'm shocked that he hasn't played him more often. Next, we got the druid half-elf Keyleth. She's a very kind-hearted, though a bit strange character, who despite being very timid and has some self-confidence issues due to both her past regarding her family and her current party members, with the exception of Tiberius, not being the best guys to be around. But still, she does her best to rise to the occasion and help people out, and tries to get along with her teammates. She's definitely the most innocent part of the story, though it ain't saying much with this gang, but when on the field, she really lets out the beast. Literally, it's definitely a nice balance with the character, and I really enjoy her interactions with Vex as she tries to be her friend. Next, we got the final member of the party, Tiberius Stormwind of Draconia, who in story is pretty entertaining. When first meeting this character, it's made very clear that though book smart, he's kind of not great with social cues, which could lead to some funny moments with him and his fellow party members. Now, despite being at the same party, you probably noticed that I didn't discuss him and Keyleth together like I did the others. Well, that's because despite being a founding member of Vox Machina Machina, he never really feels like a part of the team. And after researching the background of the character, I learned that this wasn't just in this story. I'll discuss it more when I cover Volume 2, but for now, I'll just say that things got complicated with Tiberius' creator, Orion Akba, but at least he's still pretty entertaining and doesn't hurt the story in any way. Finally, we have Zelda. This is a pretty solid villain, though I wouldn't be shocked if it turned out that she was kind of the proto version of what later villains would be, particularly the Briarwoods. Though lacking the tragic backstory, she's very intelligent and sadistic and loves to toy with her enemies, not unlike Delilah, but much like Silas, also enjoys being more active in combat, both showing off her magic skills and her physical abilities. Again, it could just be me and I'm overthinking it, but the point is, as the first big bad for the team to face, she's not a bad one. Of course, we still have other characters like the party members that Ganlin, Grog, Keyleth, and Tiberius were a part of before, and the class. Though, as mentioned, they don't really leave too much of an impact. They're still a pretty solid supporting cast. And when it comes to the class as a group, they are nicely built up and do a great job foreshadowing later stories. That's not much to say about them now, but once again, prove that Matt Mercer really wanted to truly make this world feel real. As for the art, we got Olivia Sampson, who, from what I can gather, is her debut as a comic artist, which I must say, solid start for the most part. Definitely emulates the tone and style that Vox Machina is known for, but at the same time, still feels new and fresh, since for some, this would be their introduction to this series. Now, it's not perfect. One complaint I have is actually something similar to what I said in Young Avengers regarding the issue I had with that art, that being that some of the characters look a little bit too similar to each other. Case in point, Vax looking a lot like Vash, the dead sorcerer companion from Scanlan Grog's old party, and another guy, Helix, from Keyleth and Tiberius' party. It could get distracting and even a bit confusing, especially when it comes to enemies who might look a bit similar to the heroes, which led me to go back and reread some previous pages to make sure that I read them right. But it didn't happen too often, and again, it seems to be her first big project, and the rest of the art is handled great, especially with the action scenes, though being stilled images really show momentum, helped by the use of color by Chris Northroth, Travis Ames, and Cassie Anderson. Vox Machina Origins is a fun comic to read for fantasy fans, and it is actually a good jumping on point to people interested in Critical Role. The story is hurt with the fact that it's a prequel though, but thanks to the well-written characters, you should be able to get past it easily, along with a few hiccups that the art might have, being overweighed by the rest of the amazing visuals. It's not the perfect start to the comic line, but hey, it's Vox Machina. We know they'll get there. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Next time, we reach July, which also means that we start a new theme month. Next time, worlds collide as we continue D&D with Crossover Month. Later.